Very well, thank you for being part of the show right here, and we're here to drive business together with you. And speaking of that, we're going to look at how government officers have been cautioned onto the misuse of government vehicles and highlighting that this must stop. Before we get into that story, why are you laughing? Have you gotten into a misuse of a government vehicle before?
I would want to have a government vehicle one time. You see, during the COVID-19 pandemic,
is it just about having a government? Like, I like the way you said it. No, I would want to just have a government vehicle.
Now, I need to know how it feels when you're driving government-owned vehicles. Because I am looking at a situation. During the pandemic of 2020, there was a gentleman, a very good friend of mine, who was working from a ministry, who is still working from a ministry. Now, during that time, I think the president had a directive through the office of the prime minister, was in the first initial lockdown, and he was saying everyone who has vehicles with the number plate UGI, if you have government vehicles, please return them to office. You know why? Because at that time, a number of people were not accepted to move around.
They were going to be distributed to various districts.
And then this gentleman told me, so what he did, he decided to first keep it for almost a full year. It was after the lockdown we started getting used to the situation. 2021, late 2020. Okay. That is when he got it back. So I was like,
so they're going to come for you, and you so put that friend of yours on
how
point.
How have you been keeping this government vehicle? I believe
without
it is for
tracking?
the government.
Yes.
So I think for a time, I think this is where government is actually coming up with all these directives now, because people have actually got a tendency. You see a government vehicle, simply because government will maybe not watch and say, okay, we need.
But then that means there is a problem.
Then people will definitely know. Sometimes maybe,
I don't intend to pin your friend. But the fact that your friend remained with that vehicle for almost a year is just coming out from the hideout. That means there could be several more 100 people that did the same.
And when you look at the misuse of government vehicles, I believe some people, once they are given these government vehicles, they take it upon themselves that now this belongs to me. I'm owning it. Okay, it's always good when they give you something, you treat it like it's yours, because if you don't treat something like it's yours, in most cases, it may you may actually just do anything the way you want.
I'm just praying Honorable Minister Nabanja does not see this, because he's going to come for your friend.
For my friend.
And to explain.
Well, why he still has a government vehicle? Well,
no. Why didn't he turn up when they were called out? That means he disobeyed the directive.
You see, what he told me, he says, in most cases, you know, with the government vehicles, even when you're in traffic, once people see the UGI, they normally just go through.
But police warned about that, by the way. Police warned about that, the traffic police, that regardless whether you are Sijui minister, Sijui member of parliament, you have to always follow protocol on the road. Do not just start hooting at the end of people's vehicles because you want to pass, and sometimes you end up knocking people because you want, to just take off, and maybe, perhaps you could be late, you could be finding maybe a business you want to break is on time, but hey, maybe you could have woken up early, maybe. But moving further, let us look at how the misuse of government vehicles have been pinned and as a must stop. Now, the Deputy Inspector General of Government, Dr. Patricia Achan Kuria, cautions that government officers against the misuse of government vehicles. Now, she made the remarks during the interview with Smart 24 TV, and several ministers continued to buy expensive fuel gassing vehicles in violation of standing orders. That was according to the parliamentary report revealed around 2009. Let us have more on this report. We do return to discuss. Join us on this discussion on our social media platforms. Please do comment around there. Take a listen. We return.
Several ministries continue to buy expensive fuel guzzling vehicles in violation of standing orders. That was according to the parliamentary report revealed in 2009. The draft audit report of the Public Accounts Committee also accused officials of using government-owned cars to do private work, while some civil servants keep the automobiles even after retirement. However, the Deputy Inspector General of Government, Dr. Patricia Ochan-Okiria, has cautioned the government officers against misuse of government vehicles.
Act. And the spirit behind the law is basically to emphasize on the separation of public offices and private business. We do not want people to mix public work with their private work. Therefore, if you have a government car, you should not use it for carrying pineapples to your farm. You should not use it for carrying grass to your farm. You should not be using it for carrying materials to your sites. Like we have had instances where you see an ambulance which should be carrying patients to hospital, carrying pineapples to the market. So we would like Ugandans to wake up and understand the dangers that are posed by corruption, and this will dictate the pace of anti-corruption activities in our country.
According to the report, instead of procuring less expensive vehicles that economically and effectively meet the government's transportation needs, some officials procure luxury vehicles for their own comfort and prestige. Dr. Ochan-Okiria further challenged leaders who misuse government offices for their selfish interest, saying that this is against the laws of Uganda.
And misuse of government offices. You are employed to be a clerk, and you're using your position to amass wealth. You remember the example the Honorable IGG gave? Somebody just keeps someone's file or absconds from duty and work is frustrated. So every leader must get up and be responsible according to the provisions of the law and be able to implement the mandate of their institutions.
She further decried of lack of enough funding to execute the duties.
All government ministries, departments and agencies are having budgetary constraints. Budgetary constraints because we do not realize enough money from the revenue collection. We do not realize enough money, and government has to prioritize. You cut your coat according to the cloth. So you find that most government departments and MDAs do not get enough resources, just like the Inspectorate of Government. We get little resources, and we have to work with it progressively with the availability of resources. That's why you see we have clustered to do verifications for 160 leaders. We are not saying those are the only leaders to be verified. We know that in the next phase, we can do another number, and progressively, with the availability of resources, we'll be able to increase that number.
The Inspectorate of Government is an independent institution charged with the responsibility of eliminating corruption, abuse of authority, and of public office. The powers as enshrined in the Constitution and IGG Act include to investigate or cause investigation, arrest or cause arrest, prosecute or cause prosecution, make orders and give directions during investigations. Pedson Mumbere, Smart 24 TV.
Very well, that is there on the cautioning of public officers or government-related officers onto the misuse of the vehicles. Sonko, what is your say on, parking? She mentioned something earlier that those who, for example, you find a government ambulance, you take it to the market to buy pineapples. What do you have to say about that? To me, I believe, yes, at some point we are humans. If I have a vehicle, yes, I appreciate I have it. But at some point, I pass by a market area. Why not? I mean, what is it for me to really park and put my bunch of matoke there and drive it home?
I believe the issue behind that is, in most cases, I happen to see most of the vehicles. There are some vehicles that actually move along with the presidential convoy. Now, such vehicles, in most cases, if they find you in such scenarios, I believe it is just a matter of protecting that image. That is why she's actually against it, because she knows, and I wouldn't want to
that they do
any
it.
Allegation that she also
she
may also be.
For example, parking around Kalera and then you buy food, put it in the boot.
As you're heading home after a long day, definitely.
So according to her, that is not supposed to happen with a government vehicle actually. But in a scenario where
it is so common now.
But again, that is where my argument is, Sonko. I'm human. I mean, I have a family to take care of. I'm coming from work.
Anti-government
Is it really a
motoka zayo.
So ngende wakantukeyo after I come back to the
and by the way, with this caution, I think it should as well go to the misuse of government funds, by the way. Because if you also only talk about government vehicles, me, I will not have an issue with people misusing government vehicles, but let's look at the public funds here. Because
even before we go to the public funds,
once this vehicle actually gets involved in an accident, I think these people are going to sign for a requisition to see that it is actually repaired also.
Okay.
And the requisition goes back to the taxpayers' money.
To deduct that. But still on the vehicle and still on the transportation and the way we move, the way we use this government, or because anything that is government is public.
Definitely.
Public transport, not public transportation, public government funded transportation areas in regards to vehicles. Now we have got what is happening on the road. Away even from those people working in government or government workers, we have got ambulances, for example. Oh, even when you're not sick, and even when you're late,
make a lot of money.
you just want an ambulance to maneuver through the traffic jam, even when you don't have any rush hour, but you just don't want to be in jam. I mean, me Sonka, I want to buy an ambulance.
No, you may
because I know anytime I'm going to.
You see,
anytime I'm going to drive.
During COVID time, everyone was actually opting for the ambulances to actually move to and from town. Now the challenge was government. I think government realized that there are a lot of sirens of ambulances. It was too abnormal at the time when maybe
and we were taking emergency cases.
The media would report media cases, but sometimes it could also shock you. An ambulance that has just left Kampala, out of the blue, it's still moving around. So I think that is when government said, let's now try to check what is
that
really
happened even with the government. It was you saw the short screen allegations on social media where the government ambulance was seen, unpacking passengers were coming out of it during the COVID crisis because there was no movement of borders. There were limited public transport. So I mean, a businessman, as a human being, you have to always think, how can I make money? So people started making money out of that. You just stop there, you get into an ambulance, and they drop you. But that again happened with a lot of criticism. And after that, what is now happening is that you do not need to even delay anywhere. I mean, you can wake up anytime when you've got an ambulance. Should we say that it is one of the ventures that you should invest in if you want to beat time around the country?
Ambulances, it takes me back to election times. The relationship between campaigns and ambulances, or maybe let's say MP aspirants and ambulances, is underrated. Have you noticed that in most cases, when someone is actually heading into an election, most of the MPs, they tend to buy ambulances for the community, for the constituents.
They want you people to be sick.
What relationship is there with them? And surprisingly, now when you talk about investing in them, once once they lose, no, even in Busiro South here, the gentleman in Oworipo withdrew, he actually sold off the ambulance. So my argument was, so this person, in most cases I realized they just put it as a bet. You vote for me, the ambulance stays with you. You fail to vote for me, the ambulance is. So that is what they call
business in politics.
As
you see, the Honorable Anita there is now a minister in investment. It's business. All the time she's thinking, like, it's not going to work out. You're not going to get some money out of it.
But if you decide
really.
If you decide to buy an ambulance for the community or for your constituents,
and that's why at the end of the term they are not re-elected back because of your governance.
You're actually sending this constituency help because you've realized there is a gap. in terms of the health facilities.
Okay, just like you brought it, let it go back to you, Sonko. Away from ambulances, what should people be considered at, or what is that need that the lame person there, people around our communities need more than an ambulance? Because I mean, even that ambulance will be there, but how many people use it actually from that village? So at least maybe if you could support us with ideas.
Helicopter.
Not helicopter.
Do you know in Rwanda they actually use drones to transport blood to the communities.
Yes.
I think we've had that before on the show.
We did that story last year.
And it was actually it actually made me realize that if we can also cope up from there, I'll say our sector can actually grow. And besides we just saying
there is something that you can see that if citizens, put hands on that as the real immediate citizens, they tend to see, but why in fact at some point, but not knowing that that move is going to eradicate a lot of people. It's going to help a lot of people upgrade their standards of living. For example, what is happening in oh my God, this is interesting. Make sure you share your comment with us on what you think maybe government can do for you away from the ambulance putting there. But going back to the story, how people have to remain cautioned towards the misuse of government vehicles. They are government pitchy.
If you're given chance, let's try to look
government
at this.
pitchy.
If you're given chance to appear and before a parliamentary committee, let's say
Me
on
again?
matters, yes, on
Okay.
matters of.
Don't bring me a hard question.
Thinking of the question you've said, and I'm
Okay.
like, now if at all I happen to appear
You bring.
before the parliamentary committee
Okay.
on matters regarding government and then public funding. Well, first, I do think.
I
believe-
thought you were posing the question to me.
I'm going
So-
to pose it to you.
Okay, then.
After giving my verdict.
Okay.
Well, I do think if government, the definition of government that we used to have, and actually
Government for the people,
by the people, for put in place by the people was a lot in that particular definition. So I still think government, with a humble request, government should realize that people are very important in any decision whatsoever. So with the issue of government vehicles, why I was looking at, why I actually
So,
turned
but
my
you're
eyes-
not bringing the
You know,
question. The question.
let me bring the question. Now, why I turned away from the government vehicles? Because I do believe these vehicles are more of an asset that can easily get tarnished. That's why I was looking at the government funds. Because most of the individuals don't really care about these people driving these Porsche cars, because they know they are entitled to driving, 200 million is always at stake every new term that comes by. So how about our government funds? Because I want government officers to also be cautioned greatly from the Inspector General of Government
Towards the use
towards
of
the use
funds.
of government funds. Come out boldly every other month. In fact, it should actually be every other month. Tell these government officials, please don't misuse government funds.
So you should. Is it just about telling Sonko, do not come
You follow
late,
up as
do
well.
not misuse
Because now
government funds?
they've actually cautioned them.
Okay.
It seems they've been seeing. So that means the next thing is going to be following up. Are these people still misusing our vehicles?
Me, I think on government fund misuse, what would do is coming up with a list, because at some point we have to be bold as leaders. There are allegations that are bound to be true at some point. As an IGG, she may know. I can say she
Because,
might know people who
evidence.
are misusing funds. But there is that mercy that comes along, or that attachment, and you say, maybe come Saturday. So if like at the end of every month, she comes with at least 2 names of people who have misused government fund or any allocations, I'm telling you, that is how we're going to fight corruption. And that is how we're going to fight selfishness in government. But if it is always going to remain in media reports, if it is always going to remain, on TV, on broadcasts, in the news, that, hey, hey, please stop, you're costing a lot of lives. This is not going to work. But in case she or the other authorities takes it as, you know, an initiative to make sure they pin out always at least 2 or 1 person per month, that is going to change a lot of lives.
Definitely. Changing lives.
Very well, and that exactly brings us to the end of this particular discussion, but more will be coming up at the top of the hour, where we are expecting to have our topical discussion towards the implementation of the parish development model. Make sure you do not miss this discussion with us. Catch me up at Rita Cavanier on social media platforms.
And I'm Joram Paul Sonko on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Please do follow up. Give me those gigs, by the way.
Very. And don't forget to be part of us everywhere you are, everywhere you go, and also every place you're settling in by just downloading a Yo TV.
Yes, the Yo TV
App,
Yo TV
and
channel.
you will be greatly in touch with Smart 24 TV, and it could be working out great in case you use MTN to download it via MTN.
If they also want to have a good morning Kickstarter, you will definitely be watching Smart 24. Whether Smart means business, whether you're in a taxi in traffic, whether you're on a border heading to work, whether you're in your vehicle trying to catch up maybe what is happening across the business world. Because I believe as you're heading, I don't think you're going to fight battles. You're not a soldier.
Yes,
You want to
and
understand what is
definitely
happening
you
from the
might
business
want to
world.
know what is that new coming entity, what is that news coming your way from the business world, business community. So wouldn't you want, can we say it together? Wouldn't you want that for your morning? We take a break, we do return shortly.